Paris is not just a beautiful city filled with cafés, fashion, and famous landmarks. It is a city that has burned, starved, rebelled, and rebuilt itself more times than almost any other place in Europe. It has seen kings rise and fall, revolutions explode, empires expand, and armies march through its streets. It has executed its own king, survived plagues that killed half its population, endured occupation by foreign powers, and still found the strength to reinvent itself again and again. For more than 2,000 years, Paris has stood at the center of history. And by the end of this journey, you will understand why it is called the City of Light. Long before grand boulevards and monuments, Paris was only a small settlement on an island in the Seine River. Around 259 BC, a Celtic tribe called the Parisii settled on what we now call the Isle de la Cite. They were fishermen and traders who controlled an important river crossing. Their name may have meant boat people or craftsmen, which perfectly described how they lived. They were not building cathedrals or writing philosophy, they were surviving. In 52 BC, everything changed when Julius Caesar conquered the region during the Gallic Wars. The Roman army defeated the Parisii, and the settlement was burned during the fighting. But Rome rebuilt it with its usual efficiency and called it Lutetia, which means marshy place. For nearly 3 centuries, Lutetia became a proper Roman town. There were bathhouses, temples, paved roads, and even an amphitheater that could hold thousands of spectators. Life was comfortable if you were a Roman citizen. However, empires do not last forever. By the 3rd century, Germanic tribes were raiding from the north. The residents retreated back to the island for safety and built defensive walls. The Roman world was collapsing, and the city was transforming into something new. In 451 AD, Attila the Hun marched toward the city. The people were terrified and ready to flee. According to legend, a young woman named Genevieve convinced them to stay and pray instead of abandoning their homes. Attila changed direction and spared the city. Whether this was a miracle or strategy, Paris survived. Genevieve later became Saint Genevieve, the patron saint of Paris, and her story gave the city something powerful: hope. In 508 AD, King Clovis I of the Franks made Paris his capital. With this decision, Paris became the political and spiritual center of a new kingdom. The peace did not last. Beginning in 845 AD, Viking raiders sailed up the Seine and attacked the city repeatedly. They did not want to settle, they wanted silver. At one point, Paris paid them to leave. In 885 AD, the Vikings laid siege to the city for months. A small group of defenders held the fortified bridges against thousands of attackers. Once again, Paris survived, but it learned that survival required stronger defenses. By the 12th century, Paris began to rise in importance. In 1163, construction began on Notre-Dame Cathedral. It would take nearly 2 centuries to complete, with its soaring arches, stained glass, and flying buttresses. It became one of the greatest examples of Gothic architecture in Europe. Around the same time, the University of Paris emerged as one of the first major universities in Europe. Scholars from across the continent came to study theology, philosophy, and law. The Latin Quarter earned its name because students spoke Latin. In the streets under King Philip II, ruled from 1180 to 1223, Paris was transformed. He paved the muddy streets and built a fortress called the Louvre to defend the city. The population grew rapidly. By 1300, Paris was one of the largest cities in Europe. With around 200,000 people, markets thrived, trade expanded, and the city spread across both banks of the Seine. Then disaster struck in the 14th century. Famine arrived first. Then the 100 Years' War between England and France began in 1337. In 1348, the Black Death reached Paris. Between 1/3 and 1/2 of the population died. Bodies were buried in mass graves. Entire neighborhoods were abandoned. The city was devastated. Political unrest followed. Revolts broke out. In 1420, during the war, Paris fell under English control for 16 years. It was finally liberated in 1436, but the scars remained. The 16th century brought both beauty and violence. King Francis I brought Renaissance art and ideas from Italy. He rebuilt parts of the Louvre and invited Leonardo da Vinci to France. However, religious conflict divided the country. In 1572, the St. Bartholomew's Day massacre began in Paris. Thousands of Protestants were killed by Catholic mobs. The Seine River carried bodies through the city. Religious wars continued for decades. Stability slowly returned under Henry IV, who worked to rebuild and heal the nation. In the 17th century, Paris became a center of royal power. Cardinal Richelieu strengthened the monarchy and founded the French Academy in 1635 to regulate the French language. Under Louis XIV, Paris expanded with grand buildings and wide streets. However, Louis XIV moved the royal court to Versailles in 1682 because he did not trust the people of Paris, even without the king. Paris remained the cultural heart of France. The 18th century began with elegance and ended in revolution. Philosophers such as Voltaire, Rousseau, and Diderot met in Paris to debate reason, freedom, and government. Their ideas challenged authority. Meanwhile, the poor lived in overcrowded and filthy conditions. France was deeply in debt. Bread prices rose. People were hungry and angry. On July 14, 1789, Parisians stormed the Bastille prison. The French Revolution had begun. In 1793, King Louis XVI was executed by guillotine in what is now Place de la Concorde. Thousands followed during the Reign of Terror. Paris was once again soaked in blood. Out of the chaos rose Napoleon Bonaparte. In 1799, he seized power and made Paris the capital of his empire. He built monuments such as the Arc de Triomphe and transformed the Louvre into a public museum. But his military defeats led to foreign occupation in 1814. After his final defeat at Waterloo in 1815, Paris faced a new era. The 19th century was filled with more revolutions. In 1830 and 1848, Parisians built barricades and overthrew governments. Then Napoleon III reshaped the city with massive renovations led by Baron Haussmann. Narrow medieval streets were replaced with wide boulevards, parks, and modern sewers. This redesign created the Paris we recognize today. In 1871, after defeat in war against Prussia, radical revolutionaries established the Paris Commune. It lasted only 2 months before government troops crushed it during a brutal week of fighting. Thousands were killed. Yet from this tragedy came the Belle Époque, a golden age of art and culture. The Eiffel Tower was built in 1889 for the World Fair. At first, many people hated it. Soon it became the symbol of the city. World War I threatened Paris, but did not destroy it. World War II was different. In June 1940, German troops occupied Paris. Jewish citizens were arrested and deported. Resistance fighters risked their lives. In August 1944, Paris was liberated by Allied forces. The city was free, but deeply scarred. After the war, Paris became a center of philosophy and fashion. Thinkers such as Jean-Paul Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir discussed freedom and responsibility in cafés. Designers such as Christian Dior reshaped global fashion. In May 1968, students and workers filled the streets with protests demanding change. Once again, Paris challenged authority. In recent decades, Paris has faced new challenges, including social unrest and terrorist attacks in 2015. In 2019, the world watched in shock as Notre-Dame Cathedral caught fire, and reconstruction began, almost immediately. In 2024, Paris hosted the Summer Olympics, presenting itself to the world once again. Today, Paris is a city of contrasts. It is ancient and modern, elegant and rebellious, scarred yet resilient. It has been conquered, burned, divided, and tested by history, yet it always rebuilds. It always survives. For more than 2,000 years, Paris has fought to shape its own destiny. And that fight is what truly defines the City of Light. If you enjoyed this journey through time, share your thoughts in the comments. Which moment in Paris history surprised you the most? And if you want more deep dives into the history of the world's greatest cities, make sure to subscribe and join us for the next story.